Swamine Tapaharine. Last time we talked about the translation of Naradiya Bhakti Sutra by Swamiji. You see, actually, Mr. Sturdy was doing the translation because his Sanskrit was not so profound knowledge in Sanskrit, so Swamiji was helping him. The book came out next year in 1896 April. Longman Green and Company published it. You can even now buy the book. An inquiry into love. That is the title of the book. And the authors are named as Narada Mahathera and it is studied. This Narada Mahathera is nothing but Swami Vivekananda. You see, that is his first product, seeing that because when he arrived, just then it was not quite the season was just beginning. And he did not know anyone in Britain except for the person who invited him, that means Akshay Ghosh, the adopted son of Miss Muller. Now, Miss Muller was there. Of course, we have heard about Miss Muller, say because she was in Thousand Island Park. She was also doing something in America during Swamiji's absence, but now she was there again, etc. Now, this Bhakti Sutra and a commentator saying, reporting on it, said that this is such a book that a Christian will have a sense of kinship with those people who are regarding these sutras as coming from the divine. So that means, of course, your Christianity, at least the mystic part of Christianity, is full of love. Love and you see, that is there in Christianity. So that was fully explained. And what I should add with that, the commentator says, quotes from the book, that there is a fine saying, he who loves equally everywhere need seek no asceticism. It will seek him as long as he has a coin to spend, a loaf to divide, or a coat to give. So the commentator liked this statement. He quotes another statement from the book, no religious system pretends to divine deity. It can, at the best, strive with other systems to suspend some intellectual or emotional veil through which, in shining, the light may take form. And then he writes to Christina, if you remember Christina, who would later be known as Sister Christine in India. And she was a poor and pure young lady from Detroit, of a saintly character. Among other things, she says that Swamiji excuses himself, saying that he did not reply because he was busy. But I send my love every day to you, however, and every note I write for America. I received another note from Kripananda. You remember Kripananda, this Landsberg. Since then, he's silent. Where is he? Very glad to learn he did so well in Detroit. He's very correct and persevering. Success always comes to such. So, in absence, they were doing this work in America in their own manner. And this Kripananda had an advantage in the sense that he knew thoroughly the European cultures and the philosophies of Europe. And for him, coming from a Jewish background, it was very difficult to accept Advaita Vedanta. He was struggling to understand it, but he never could take it to his heart. But you must understand that he is from a Jewish background. It is very difficult for them, and that the world is not, and the world is a shadow, and everything is one. This multiform universe is a lower truth, etc. So all these things are difficult. Anyhow, Swamiji himself writes to Christina that things are coming up very slowly here in England. As the season is over, it is not really correct. Season was just a beginning. I'll be only a month or so more here and then start again for America. Give my love to Mrs. Funke, to Mrs. Phelps, and all the Detroit friends. Purity, patience, and perseverance overcome all. All great things must of necessity be slow. So he's saying that he is slow because he was exploring. He did not know England. After reaching England, many of his ideas about England changed. You have see, the Parliament of Religions, he denounced the imperialism, Britain with her boats, trampling upon so many millions of Asiatics, he said in one of his talks. But coming here, he saw certain good side of the the British nature, that they may be slow in accepting an idea, but if they accept an idea, they are tenaciously, they cling to it and work upon it. They are not a little frivolous like the ordinary Americans. This he noted. And he also noted that whatever may be the relation between the Britishers and the common Indians in India, most of the retired generals he met who had served in India were very polite and gentle towards him, and there were no kind of animosity or disgust in their mind. He could not find it. So you see, these things were new for him, that there is a section of Britishers who are really gentlemen and polite. Now, Swamiji's first lecture, you see, apart from this thing, first lecture was given in Maidenhead, which is not far from our present ashram there in England. So Maidenhead, and among others, the name of supporters were given, and Miss F.H. Muller, M.A. supporters. Muller studied, which was unusual for a lady, that means did some higher studies, but he was not given any degree because no university in England was giving degrees to women in the 19th century. But you see, this is his type of nature, that she thought that she was eligible for an MA, and so she, in your advertisement, she gave her name, you say Miss F.H. Muller MA, and tickets were priced at £0.50 and 1 shilling. Two types of tickets were there in the hall. Anyhow, Swamiji talked about the subject he was working upon then. That means his mind was full of this bhakti question. And he said that there are two types of religions. One is fully based on superstitions. Another is metaphysical ideas. But he said that none of them can have a grip over the society if there is no love element in it. Work alone without this element, you see, of love is not satisfying. Then he says that there is the realist who bring down ideas into regular form through And there is the idealists who bring very higher ideas down to earth, but they are worked upon by the realists, and there must be a combination of these two things, that there should be idealism and there should be realism. Now he says that love is of three kinds. It is in the Bhakti Shastra, it is there. They call it Sadharani, Samanjasa, and Samartha Bhakti. Sadharani is you want enjoyment, but you are not interested in the interests or the attitudes of the person you are loving for. So that is Sadharani, it is the sensual love. And then the Samanjasa, it is the ordinary love which is prevalent in the society, prevalent among the family, that you love me and I love you. And this love is normally in proportion to the love received from the other partner. You see, this is Samanjasa. But there is another higher love where you see, you do not care about yourself, but you give out your love, which is, you see, exemplified in the attitude of the Braja Gopis towards Krishna in the Bhakti Shastra. So Swamiji, he is not mentioning all these terms there, but he's these three types of, and he says that this love, this love is the highest love, and the third love, the samartha. Then he says that this in samartha love, there is a lot of renunciation, because you do not care about your interests. You see, you have given your love for it. In exchange, you do not want anything, and you pour out your love and love. This is the highest mystics always do that. You remember, I cited it once. This they call it a sutta, Metta Sutta, which is recited by the southern Buddhists. You see, much. There is one line, Buddha, in that is Mata Yathaniyang Puttam Ayusha Ekaputtam Manurakhe Evampi Sabba Bhutani Manasam Bhavai Aparimanam. This is Buddha's. That means, as the mother, even with her life, wants to protect her child, especially if the child is a unique child, you should bring in that mother's heart in respect of your rapport to every being, and that should be without limit. That is the meaning of this, you see. So Swamiji also speaks in this vein that this is the highest kind of love which will take you to God. And in course of the talk, he narrates a story. Story is this: a Mohammedan warrior, he saw that it is time for prayer, so he entered into a garden for praying. But in the garden, there was also a girl who was waiting for her lover. So at a certain moment, the Mohammedan was lying prostrate according to the rules of namaz. And then the girl just at that moment saw her lover coming. So she became totally ignorant about the environment and was running towards her lover. In the process, she stepped on the prostrate form of this Mohammedan. The Mohammedan rose up immediately with sword in hand and said, "You wretch, you disturb my worship, I shall finish you." So the girl turns back and says that, "You are talking of worship. I forget the environment because I am attracted to this, my worldly lover. And you are devotion. What kind of devotion is it, and what kind of worship it is that you actually say aware of my stepping on you. If it is a total absorption in God, you should not be aware of it. So then the warrior was humble and say, this is the, I think Swamiji presented this story on the model of Billamangal. You know that Billamangal, the legend of Billamangal. Billamangal was a Brahmin from South India, and there was a Shraddha of his father. After the Shraddha was over, he was running to go to his lover. So on the way, there was a river. So he hugged a corpse, a dead body, to cross the river. And then he reached the gate of the lady she was searching for, but the gate was closed. So he climbed up a rope, but it was not a rope, it was a cobra. So he finally, and then the lady scolded him, saying that you are so much attracted to this cage of flesh. Give a fraction of this love to God and go to Vrindavan to give your love to Krishna, a fraction of it, and it will be a great mistake, etc. So Villamangal came to Vrindavan, etc. This is the story. So I think on the model of this story, Swamiji told this, etc. And then he, towards the end of the talk, he says that a barbarous race, their God is cruel. Their God is, you see, ready to give punishment always. And there is the element of love. But a higher developed your race, they have another vision of God. They can see the God of love. So that was his, this was his first talk. The next, as we know, his talk was given on 17th October. Next talk was in Princess Hall in London on 22nd of October. It was a Tuesday in Piccadilly. This talk has been on self-knowledge. This was the talk he gave on that day. And he said in the introduction, I propound a philosophy which can serve as a basis to every possible religious system in the world. And my attitude towards all of them is one of extreme sympathy. My teaching is antagonistic to none. I direct my attention to the individual to make him strong, to teach him that he himself is divine. And I call upon men to make themselves conscious of this divinity within. That is really the ideal, conscious or unconscious, of every religion. He says, because you know Swamiji himself, his personal path was the impersonal God, Nirguna Brahma. So when he talks about this subject, he's full of fire, because there his heart laid always. Swamiji, since this was a big success, this lecture, it attracted the notice of, because Swamiji was thinking of leaving by the end of October or the beginning of November. Then he discussed with Sturdy, since there has been a success, he should remain at least 1 month more to create some sort of ambience in, because England in those days was a little suspicious about Eastern things after all this your nonsense of the Theosophical Society were disclosed. You see, first Blavatsky, she used to materialize things, and her trick was discovered in India, and this was reported. Then after her passing away, the your forging of documents by Mr. Judge, who was hierarchy, say, very high in the Theosophical Society that was revealed. So this gave a shock because Theosophists were taking up many Hindu ideas. Along with that, there are special theories about these Mahatmas in the Himalaya, Kutumi, and all that. So they were very slow, and Swamiji also noticed that. But once he gave once there was a connection, and people knew that he was not a member of the theosophy, and it was boldly say that Swami Vivekananda is not a member of the Theosophical Society. You see, he had no connection with this. So to assure people that someone writes about this thing, the lecture was a most fearless and eloquent exposition of the pantheistic philosophy of Vedanta school, and the Swami seems to have incorporated into his system a good deal also of the moral element of the yoga school. As the closing passage of his lecture presented in the modified form, not the advocacy of mortification, which is the leading feature of the latter school, but the renunciation of all so-called material comforts and blessings as the only means of entering into perfect union with the Supreme and Absolute Self. That is true, because even the Bhagavata Purana says, Yaddichaya Matkathadu Jata Shuddhastu Yappuman Narbinna Nati Shakta Bhakti Yoga Siddhida. That by chance, if someone has developed a liking for talk on God, and he is not totally attached, very much attached to the world, at the same time, he is not totally indifferent to the world, to such a person, Bhakti Yoga brings to gradually perfection. Yes, thereby hinting that there is another path where there is nirbinna and nirasakta. He must be totally indifferent and totally non-attached to material things to enter into, especially Jnana Yoga. Apart from other disciplines, you must have tremendous viveka and vairagya, and of course, you must have also an attitude of philosophizing things. If you are not, if philosophy is an anathema for you, then Jnana Yoga is not for you. This lecture, you see, in Princess Hall lecture, this was the first big success in England, and Swamiji became gradually known to people there. Now, he himself, Swamiji, 2 days after this lecture, sent a letter to the press, especially in the press, London newspapers who have accepted him and kindly reported on his that he is not a member of the, he writes, as chairman on the occasion of the Swami Vivekananda's recent oration at Princess Hall, of which you gave so full and lucid a synopsis, it is not Swami, it is a study writing. May I be permitted to make one short statement for the convenience and assistance of your readers who may desire to hear more of the Vedanta philosophy from this learned Oriental. I merely desire it to be known that the Swami may be communicated with either by letter or personally by anybody whomsoever at 80 Oakley Street, South SW, and that this his work being wholly in the interest of truth and for love, no fees, costs, or collection of any kind whatever fall upon those who attend his classes or meet him privately, etc. So these things, you see, apparently to draw more people to his classes, etc., he did it, and these things ticked. Swamiji would give later on many, you see, he was giving um, at Oakley Street address 8 lectures per week. That means 4 days he used to give lectures twice a day. In the morning session for the high class people and in the evening for the poor people. This was the general type. So himself rise to merry hell of Chicago. I had 8 classes a week apart from public lectures, and they were so crowded that a good many people, even ladies of high rank, sat on the floor and did not think of anything of it. I tell them, he wrote to Alasinga in Madras, to imagine that they are under the sky of India, under a spreading banyan, and they like this idea. He was also doing other things. For example, I say he was keeping note of what was happening in America during his absence. You see, in New York, in Chicago, in Detroit, where he has kindled some fire, whether the fire is being maintained or not. And he was by and large happy, though he noticed that Miss Muller was not very popular with the Vedantic Society of New York, and members were reluctant to cooperate with her because Swamiji and she herself also complained that you see, there is some resistance from the members of the society. And she needed money, etc. Swamiji replied that he himself was poor here. He had very few friends as such, and that for the classes in the rented hall, he has to give £3 per week. So he has the money and he's being supported that way and given lodging by a board and lodging by one Mr. Sturdy, you see, who was helping him in his mission in England. But Swamiji added that it seems to me that you have many qualities, but you lack one thing, love. If there is no love in you, then you cannot attract people. You see. Maybe the best course for you is to join some rich, organized your sects like the Theosophical Society, and they'll be glad to receive you because you have many qualities. So, but we find that Miss Muller is still with Swamiji, though he will not be with Swamiji many more years. Swamiji was also informally meeting with very important people. One of them was Mr. Stanton Coit, who had formed the ethical movement in London, especially the East London Ethical Society at Mile End, as well as the South London Ethical Society, and was an organizing lecturer for the West London Ethical Society, drawing in his capacity large audiences at Prince's Hall. So he had a conversation one day in Albemarle, and Swamiji, they had good, lively exchanges. Miss MacLeod also was there, and such things because he was a very important and influential man himself, a lecturer himself. Ethical society is for morality and ethics question. So such kind of exchanges gave Swamiji entry into another selected higher rung of people in London. From among them, he would get at least 3 workers in England. One is Margaret Noble, another is this Captain Sevier, and the third one, Mrs. Sevier. They would lay down their lives for the sake of India, three of them. Swamiji talked about man and society in the light of Vedanta. Next talk was like that. He talked in the balloon society. Society is not composed of balloonists simply, it is aeronautics people, then other scientists were there in this society. It was on November 10 at the South Place Chapel it was held. So that way, you see, Swamiji was showing to them that monasticity or asceticism, etc., it is not required for higher religion. Higher religion needs certain basic things, you see, certain yoga principles that may be the three yogas which are mainly for elevation in the mystical level. One is the bhakti, one is the raja yoga, and another is the jnana yoga. While karma yoga is the preparatory level for everyone. Then we find Swamiji at the same time he was enthusing his Indian brothers and his disciples in Madras, Alasinga, etc., and Gigi, the Narasimhacharya. In one of the letters, in the beginning, you see, in the beginning of 1895, when he was in America, he wrote to Swami Brahmananda that we need three centers, one in New York, another in Calcutta, another in Madras. Now, from London, he was adding to this list London also. That means he was thinking, you see, in a big way that it must be a world mission, you see. So New York, London, Calcutta, Madras, you see. He also, at a certain point, was thinking of spreading towards whole of India. He once wanted Avedananda to create a center in Meerut, because he remembered that Meerut once the seven brothers met, and for a time it was another monastery. It is in a private house, you see. It happened so that the seven brothers, monastic brothers, they met there and stayed for some time in Meerut. So he asked Abhidananda to create a center in Meerut. Shivananda, he was already in Almora. He wanted him to have a center in Almora. And Akhandananda, you see, in Jaipur and Ajmer, with branches in Alwar and Khetri. And Ramakrishna, he wanted to create centers all over Bengal. And Brahmananda, he asked to create a center in Kashmir. He was giving instruction to Alasinga Perumal regarding the magazine started, Brahmavadin, and he was very, very cautious about this, your Brahmavadin, which was an English publication. And the first two issues were received by him at the end of October. He was in London, I say. He received the first two issues. And he was giving certain time hints or editing. He said that Vairagi, you say, shuffled off his mortal coil, do not write such sentences. It is humorous, it is jocose. So don't write old-fashioned, humorous, pompous, you say, phrases. That means his eyes were everywhere. And he was inquiring also, you see, from his friends in America, how they are progressing, what is happening, etc. He used to keep himself abreast. That means already, you see, on three continents his mind was working. And and he wanted very much to have one brother disciple. So he asked first Sardananda to come. Sardananda refused to come, So he wrote him a devastating letter to Sardananda that I have a mission and I shall carry it out whether any one of you support me or not. And if my mission is correct, then the correct man will come at the right time, at the right place. So I do not care. You see, if I have served you, you see, I am happy, but now goodbye. He was totally disgusted with this. Uh, So receiving this letter, Sardananda immediately started. You see, he wanted next other Swamis also from India. He wanted at least one in America, one in England, so that when he go away to India, they would nurture Vedanta movement created with so much labor and his friends. So this was and as I've said that both Kripananda and Mular Abhayananda, in their own way, they did whatever they could. So they were studying, explaining. They were even both of them were even gave brahmacharya to Western people. So during Swamiji's absence, it was not his the Vedanta movement did not halt in America. So that is it, and he had already started a magazine in Almora, and very soon he would next year he would begin a little probing in the Himalayan region to start a center, Advaita Ashrama. We should halt now and say, and I invite questions.
There is one question which came in from Mojtaba Darwish. We can see a different way in Swami Vivekananda-ji's manner than many others in dealing with religion and cults. Could you please explain what is the fundamental thought of Swami in dealing with the new cults and the religious?
New cult. What is the new cult? In dealing with the new cult, what is the new cult?
Maybe Mojtaba Darwish, if you can unmute yourself and you could explain to Swamiji what you meant by this question.
Hello, Swami.
Yes.
It means like a cult, Sufi cult, or other many new spiritual.
Swamiji had full of, you see, full of honor and sympathy for Sufism. While he was in India, he wrote about a Sufi saint that I have met this man whose every feature on the face was showing that he had attained the Paramahansa level himself. Like then earlier, when he wanted it from Sri Ramakrishna that he would like to be continually merged in Nirvikalpa Samadhi and would like to get up from this Samadhi 3-4 days, at the interval of 3-4 days, to eat something and again slip into Samadhi. Sri Ramakrishna said that fie on you. You have such a low ideal, you see, I did not imagine. I thought that you are like a banyan tree under whose shade thousands will come and take rest. And he remarked, Ramakrishna, there is a higher ideal than Samadhi. You yourself sing this song. And he quoted Zafar's lines. Zafar was a mystic Sufi. Jo kuch hai so tu hi hai. Whatever exists is thou only. So Sufism and Sufism historically also has blended, if you know the history, has blended well with Indian mysticism, especially Dara Shikoh, the Mughal prince, and his guru, who was executed, say, by Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb ordered, and the Maulavis, etc., to prosecute him because he was you see, open, and Darashiko was you see, beheaded, you see, not simply for the sake of the throne, but also because he acknowledged his Upanishad as a revealed book, and he himself translated these Upanishads. You see, Darasuka was a Sufi, the eldest son of Shahjahan. So that shows that Swamiji had he had no reason to be unsympathetic towards Sufism. Is it okay?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's okay, Swamiji. But also, I mean, you see some different behavior of Swami Vivekananda in dealing with some cult like Theosophy, Madame Blavatsky,
I
and
see.
his.
Yes, because theosophy, you see, he himself said on Indian soil regarding your Madame Annie Besant, that
Yeah,
we Indians should admire Annie Besant for whatever good she has done for India and doing for India. But that does not mean that we should support all the theories, these Kutumis and Mahatmas, and they say, because Swamiji, regarding anything, any religion, any sect, any ideas, they say, he was against everything which could not be proved, and which say just you ask to take it granted because some books are mentioning it, etc. Everything must be proved, as in science, so in religion. That was Swamiji's, I say. So these Kutumis and Mahatmas, hidden Mahatmas and the Tibet, etc., this thing he could not accept. And every thing should be transparent. You see, this question of materializing things, if you are, you see, we know in Yoga Shastra, in the occult powers, you can develop occult powers, but these occult powers, when it is exhibited to the people, there are two possibilities. Either you are a magician or you are a yogi who has attained a certain level. So these are the things, you see. So if you are a magician, it is not religion. And even if you are a yogi who have attained certain powers, that is not also higher religion, because Patanjali himself decries it. He says that these are vibhutis for ordinary people. These are obstacles for the real yogis. And this is not an example also.
Thank you so much, Swamiji.
Yes.
It's complete.
Okay. Thank you. So now let us go in for meditation. Our first subject of meditation should be what's this Swamiji's story about despair in the garden and the girl running over the prostrate form, and the Billamangal story, you see. That should be our first, you see. That means this question of intense love which makes you forget all etiquettes and environment. Marika, we have mentioned Mrs. Bagley's spacious and highly decorated drawing room, which used to attract so many talented people, you say, and evenings used to be organized where people used to talk or give performance, etc. In London, such a lady was Mrs. Howes. Now, on 23rd of November, Swamiji was invited there, and as usual, the cream of the society was there. As soon as Swamiji entered there, Mr. Howis himself came out and hailed him. Here comes the master. And hailed him. Swamiji talked on universal religion. Universal religion, you see, was a theme for him dear to his heart, and he was developing it very much, you see. So this universal religion, which means in a simple word that religion is, as Swamiji himself explained, that I learned from a master that religion is one, though religions are many. And the real religion is to see, get united to the supreme, or to the what is beyond the phenomenal, the transcendental, you see, thing. And this can be done in many, many ways. And this difference in religion is a man is trying to do that in different cultures, in different circumstances. So that has given rise to different religions. But his central point, the religion, real religion, is one, because the drive is one. And so that is universal religion. He talked about it. We do not have any record of what he said, but let us meditate on this ideal of universal religion, you see, which Swamiji would explain also in Raja Yoga, that do this either through work or worship or philosophy or psychic control, by one or more of this, and be free. This is the whole of religion. The book, the creed, the form, the temple, the rituals, etc., are nothing but secondary details. We have mentioned that in your inland, Swamiji had certain solid workers. One of them is Sister Nivedita, at that time Miss Margaret Noble. Miss Noble was a teacher at the Ruskin School, so weekends, only on weekends she could attend. She herself writes of her memory of the first meeting she attended. She loves, she says that all the religion of love is union of the spirit. All love of another kind is quickly evanescent. Only the spiritual lasts, and this grows. Deepen your own power of thought and love. Bring your own lotus to blossom. The bees will come of themselves. Believe first in yourself, then in God. A handful of strong men will move the world. We need a heart to feel, a brain to conceive, a strong arm to do the work. Yesterday competition was the law. Today cooperation is the law. Tomorrow there is no law. Let sages praise thee, or let the world blame. Let fortune itself come, or let poverty and rags stare thee in the face. Eat the herbs of the forest one day for food, next share a banquet of 50 courses. Looking neither to the right nor to the left, follow the one. So let us think of this ideal. That means equanimity. Swamiji is talking about equanimity in different changes in life, vicissitudes. You should maintain the equanimity. That is the thing. He says, eat the herbs of the forest one day, next day take a banquet of 50 courses. Okay, namaste.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Pranam.